How's it going, everyone? It's Chow here, and today we are going to talk a little bit about innate immunity, so let's get started. Okay, now when we look at our immune system, we're really looking at two branches. The first branch is the innate branch, which allows for innate immunity, and the second branch is the adaptive branch, which allows for adaptive immunity. So what exactly are the differences between innate systems as well as adaptive systems? Well, if we look at the innate system, it's actually just a generalized basal form of defense against other pathogens in the outside world, and we often see characteristics such as inflammation, phagocytosis, as well as surveillance. On the opposite hand, adaptive immune systems often require some kind of a specific approach. So if we're talking about, for instance, antigens and antibodies and T cells and B cells and the MHC systems, that falls under adaptive immunity. So humoral responses, cell-mediated responses, that's over here in adaptive immunity. Innate immunity, again, is that generalized prevention and protection of your body from outside pathogens, for instance. So when we're looking at the immune system, and more specifically in our case, the innate immune system, one of the best and most common first lines of defenses are barriers. And the key barrier for our body is the skin. So the skin has very harsh conditions. It's very dry, it's salty. There's the presence of normal flora, which are just normal bacteria that's found on your skin, and that can actually help fight off potentially pathogenic bacteria. And obviously that saltiness on your skin can also be a protection. Whoa, okay, that was loud. Okay, so again, that saltiness on your skin is going to actually help prevent pathogens from going inside and doing damage. Okay, so there are other non-specific defenses, for instance, like mucus. So mucus, that nasty, gross stuff that's produced by the body, can actually be used as a means to trap pathogens, which is pretty straightforward, I think. And in more sort of protein-based methodologies, we also have defensins and lysozymes, so different proteins and enzymes that basically can have antimicrobial capability. So in this instance, we're talking about peptides, maybe not in the form of protein, maybe it's just a polypeptide, but these are amino acid-derived chemicals, biomolecules, I should say, that potentially can help protect your body from outside pathogens, but they're non-specific. Okay. One of the key things about the innate system, however, is inflammation. So we've most likely, every single one of us has had inflammation at some point in our lives. It's not exactly the most beautiful thing and the most wonderful thing to experience, but it is actually very key in protecting us generally from outside attackers. So what we're seeing here is this influx of lymphocytes and blood and other cells to a specific area of problem, and that can ultimately cause dilations of the blood vessels, which ultimately can cause sort of that redness and that pain and swelling that we really don't like in the process. But again, that inflammation is actually trying to help the body. Now, that inflammation, what it's really doing is trying to isolate the issue. So if you have a cut or some problem that's happening on your skin and it breaks through the skin and you have pathogens like bacteria that go in, you're going to have an isolated area of problem. And so inflammation in that isolated area can allow for recruitment to help solve that infection. So what we're really seeing here is that in the presence of the pathogen, the mast cells, right, will start releasing histamine. So the histamine then causes dilation of the blood vessels. When those blood vessels dilate, right, we're going to see an increase in sort of that permeability, and some of these cells, especially like phagocytes or neutrophils, they'll leak out, and they leak out into the skin area or wherever the problem is, and actually engulf and kill the invaders. What's really fascinating is that the cells, right, can secrete cytokines. Now remember, cytokines are almost hormone-like molecules, right, which can help signal to other cells to recruit more cells, for instance phagocytes, to the site, and this can also potentially initiate fever. Now fever is never a fun thing to actually ever experience, but fever in itself, by warming the body up, can actually help inhibit pathogens, and to a greater or lesser degree, it can also promote lymphocyte development. So we're slowly pushing on to other forms of defenses as well. So This is really nice. Inflammation is good because it's a generalized means, an innate means to help protect your body from maybe non-specific pathogens. But the problem is that if inflammation is too strong or it keeps going for too long, this can cause certain problems like allergic reactions, autoimmunity can be a minor issue, as well as sepsis. So sepsis is basically where your inflammation and your general defense is so strong that not only is your body targeting those pathogens, but it actually can start degrading necessary cellular structures in your body as well. So inflammation is a good thing, but too much of it can also be very detrimental to the health of you. Okay, so before I go, I will just basically go through this particular chart over here. It might be good to see visually what actually is going on. So we have inflammation that's happening, right? So you have some kind of an injury to your skin. So for instance, you prick your skin with a pin, or you give yourself a really bad paper cut or something like that, and it's going to break through the skin. Now there are going to be bacteria, right, in these in the paper or the tip of the pin or whatever, and the bacteria is going to enter into your body. There's going to be some kind of a chemical release. So what we're perhaps seeing here is the mast cells. So the mast cells are going to be releasing certain chemicals, such as histamine, and that histamine is ultimately going to cause dilation of those blood vessels. So we see a dilation and increased leakiness of the local blood vessels that are near that site of injury. And we're going to see a migration of phagocytes, so these cell-eating cells, into those areas, these macrophages. And so the phagocytes, which include things such as macrophages and neutrophils, if we're talking about bacteria, will go in and basically consume the bacteria and whatever cell debris there is still left over, and this will ultimately allow the tissue to heal. But in order to allow that process to occur and that leakiness to increase, we obviously need inflammation to occur. So you have a little bit of other things such as fibrinogens and fibrins that are going to cause that blood clotting. But in addition to that blood clotting, which prevents more bacteria from entering, you also have an innate system inside that pushes for this dilation and leakiness of local blood vessels and ultimately allow for migration of phagocytes to the area to help mediate the process of healing. So this is the whole concept of innate immunity. Remember, this is a generalized approach by your body to help protect itself from pathogens in a non-specific way. Again, it's characterized often by inflammation, phagocytosis, as well as surveillance of areas. In the next video, we will talk about adaptive immunity, which looks at more specific approaches that often are able to target specific types of antigens found in pathogens, but unfortunately, the issue is that this can take a little bit longer than just simple innate immunity. However, specificity can also be very instrumental to protecting your body as well, which is why adaptive immunity is no less important. And in the next video, we will talk more about this concept of adaptive immunity.